Tell everybody who you are and tell everybody your background, please.
Okay, and my name is David Fravor. I served 24 years in the military, enlisted Marine for a couple years. They sent me to the Naval Academy. Then I flew for 18 years for the Navy, and at the time of the incident that we're going to talk about, I was a commanding officer of VFA 41, the Black Aces.
November 10th, 2004, the USS Princeton, which is one of the carriers, they started noticing on November 10th that there's a few objects flying around at 28,000 feet out on the coast of California. On November 14th, you flew and witnessed a 40-foot-long white tic-tac shaped object with no wings, flying in ways you've never thought possible. And in some interview somewhere, he said, "I think it was not from this world."
You know, the visibility is 50 miles. So even at 35 miles a minute, I'm going to be able to see this thing turn into a little dot as it goes off into the horizon for probably a minute. The thing that we saw disappeared in a second.
These from anything else that we have in our current inventory is quite simple. There's 5 observables that associate when you look at something as a UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena, as being truly unique. That's instantaneous acceleration, hypersonic velocity, low observability, trans-medium travel, the ability to operate in multiple environments or domains, and last but not least, in the vernacular, would be anti-gravity.
Luis Elizondo spent over 20 years in military intelligence in Afghanistan, the Middle East, and Guantanamo Bay. He didn't give UFOs a second thought. That was until 2008, when he was asked to join something at the Pentagon called the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, also known as AATIP.
The mission of AATIP was quite simple. It was to collect and analyze information involving anomalous aerial vehicles, what I guess in the vernacular you call them UFOs.
Hidden away in the Pentagon, AATIP was a part of a top-secret $22 million program, largely pushed by then Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid to investigate UFOs. In Reid's 2009 letter to Secretary of Defense William Lynn, the letter entails just how secret the program was. Due to the sensitivities of the information surrounding this program, I require your assistance in establishing a restricted access program. When Elizondo took over in 2010, he focused on the national security implications of unidentified aerial phenomena, or what the government calls UFOs.
Imagine a technology that can do 600 to 700 G-forces, that can fly at 13,000 miles an hour, that it can evade radar, and that can fly through air and water and possibly space. And oh, by the way, has no obvious signs of propulsion, no wings, no control surfaces, and yet still can defy the natural effects of Earth's gravity. That's precisely what we're seeing.
Elizondo described AATIP as a mixture of scientists, optical engineers, avionics, and intelligence experts, often working for the program part-time. Nothing was said or done with the 2004 Nimitz case for over 5 years, until Luis Elizondo came across it and started to investigate. Inside the Pentagon, Elizondo's findings were met with skepticism, as AATIP's funding was eliminated in 2012. But Elizondo and a group of skeptics kept the mission alive, until out of frustration, he quit the Pentagon in 2017, but not before getting these 3 videos declassified. things took a stranger turn.
Now, being as you were in government and very close to literally the machine that runs the world, what's the general perception when people are discussing these things in Washington? What's the general perception of what's going on with these things?
Well, I'm happy to say that it's changed. That perception has changed considerably in the last few years. People feel like they have permission to talk about it.
Christopher Mellon served as Deputy Secretary of Defense for the Intelligence Department under Presidents Clinton and George W. Bush, and had access to many top-secret programs. Mellon says he grew concerned nothing was being done about UFOs, so he decided to do something about it. In 2017, he acquired the 3 images that Luis Elizondo had declassified and leaked them to the New York Times.
The U.S. Navy has finally acknowledged that videos appearing to show UFOs flying through the air are real. They don't call them UFOs, they call them unidentified aerial phenomena. The several videos they're talking about were recorded years ago by fighter pilots. Then in 2017, they were made public by the New York Times.
He joined forces with then civilian Lou Elizondo, telling their story to anyone who would listen.
People see the evidence, they'll understand, and they'll find it compelling. Sometimes it's only by bringing the information public and bringing it to the attention of Congress that you get action.
But not only did the New York Times expose the top-secret program, but also let out a hint that there were other videos as well. In 2019, Navy sailors captured this footage through their night vision goggles. And in March of the same year, a group of Navy pilots captured these photos of what looks like a metallic blimp. In 2021, a Navy pilot captured this video while filming on his phone. These videos and photographs were captured by Navy pilots on duty and have been confirmed to be authentic by the US government. These are only a few of the hundreds of sightings that are currently being investigated by the US Navy, many of which remain classified due to national security concerns.
The New York Times reporting that intelligence officials are worried the videos show America's adversaries may be racing ahead of the U.S. in developing elite weapons technology. Senior officials expressing concern to the paper about China or Russia possibly experimenting with hypersonic technology.
As you begin to read through the reports, you start to understand exactly what the US government is so interested in these sightings. There are probably multiple types of UAP, requiring different explanations. UAP clearly poses a safety of flight issue and may pose a challenge to US national security. UAP events continue to occur in restricted or sensitive airspace, highlighting possible concerns for safety of flight or adversary collection activity.
Please tell people your credentials, what your background is.
Sure. So, my name is Ryan Graves. I have an engineering degree, mechanical and aerospace engineering. I promptly left doing that to go fly F-18s for the Navy as soon as I graduated college. Did that for about a decade.
Former Lieutenant Navy pilot Ryan Graves calls whatever's out there a complete security risk. Him and his F-18 squadron began seeing UAPs off the coast of Virginia Beach in 2014.
And could you describe what was the very first experience?
Yeah, so for me personally, the experience was simply just flying out to the area like I would any other day. And instead of seeing an empty airspace with just my wing person or another squadron doing something in a different block, there were all of a sudden a lot of different radar contacts, which is immediately a problem. On a typical aircraft, it would kind of look like this. It would be coming out and it would go steady, and if they turn, it would be like boop, 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 and you see them turn, right? Like, it's not magic. But this object, the target aspect would kind of be like all over the place, like kind of randomly in a 360 degrees, from that top-down view.
So the first time you see these things, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, the first time really was, well, what is this, right? It's not a UFO or something mysterious at this point. It's at what we're thinking at this point we see on the radar is just, well, our radar is broken, right? Once we started seeing them on the radar enough, and we would get close enough, we'd actually see them on our FLIR as well. So our
What's FLIR?
Advanced Targeting Pod. It's essentially a infrared camera that we use for targeting mostly in the air-to-surface environment.
Graves says pilots training off the Atlantic coast see things like this almost all the time.
At this point, I would say maybe 80 to 90% of our squadron had probably seen one of these on the radar at this point. Everyone was aware of it every day for at least a couple of years.
Wait a minute, every day for a couple of years?
Mm-hmm.
He says pilots speculate it's one of three things: secret U.S. technology, an adversary spy aircraft, or something else entirely.
I would say, the highest probability is it's a threat observation program.
Could it be Russian or Chinese technology?
I don't see why not.
Are you alarmed?
I am worried, frankly. If these were tactical jets from another country that were hanging out up there, it would be a massive issue. But because it looks slightly different, we're not willing to actually look at the problem in the face. We're happy to just ignore the fact that these are out there watching us every day.
And this is the part where the Pentagon and lawmakers were forced to do something about it.
It's a privilege to be here with you today to address your questions regarding unidentified aerial phenomenon, or UAP. Put simply, UAP are airborne objects that, when encountered, cannot be immediately identified. However, it is the department's contention that by combining appropriately structured, collected data with rigorous scientific analysis, any object that we encounter can likely be isolated, characterized, identified, and if necessary, mitigated.
At the first congressional hearing in over 50 years, lawmakers gathered in Washington, D.C. with top military officials to discuss UAPs.
Let me share with you the first video that we have here today, which shows an observation in real time. There it was. That's, in many cases, that's all that a report may include. And in many other cases, we have far less than this. As we detailed in both the unclassified and classified versions of the preliminary assessment released by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence last June, this often limited amount of high-quality data and reporting hampers our ability to draw firm conclusions about the nature or intent of UAP. Another video and image taken years apart in different areas. In this video, U.S. Navy personnel recorded what appears to be triangles, some flashing, recorded several years ago, off the coast of the United States. This was recorded while the U.S. Navy ship observed a number of small unmanned aerial systems in the area. And importantly, the video was taken through night vision goggles with a single lens reflex camera. These remained unresolved for several years.
Of those 144, 18 of them reportedly appear to exhibit unusual flight characteristics, appear to demonstrate advanced technology, and some of them appear to remain stationary in winds aloft, move against the wind, maneuver abruptly, or move at considerable speed without discernible means of propulsion. That's pretty intriguing.
How about wreckage? Have we come across any wreckage of any kind of object that has now been examined by you?
The UAP task force doesn't have any wreckage that isn't explainable, that isn't consistent with being of terrestrial origin.
Do we have any sensors underwater to detect on submerged UAPs? Anything that is in the ocean or in the seas?
So I think that would be more appropriately addressed in closed sessions.
While the footage was shocking, Pentagon officials admitted that most of what they captured remained unexplained. More information was to be shared in a confidential setting, but after the meeting, many were left wondering what the government may be concealing from the public.
Now, Louis, the intelligence report doesn't use the terms alien or extraterrestrial, but it does say these are likely physical objects, and it does not rule out the possibility that they are not of this world. So what else could they be?
Well, they're not ruling it out because they don't really have answers. That's one of the things that report concluded last year. And what we heard today from the senior Navy intelligence official was that remains the case, that a lot of the objects that they are seeing in these videos or that they're tracking on sensors that are either on ships, on aircraft, or maybe even land-based are physical objects, but they just can't explain why they're moving so fast, whether there's something else that could be explaining why these movements are being recorded by sensors.
Until in 2023, when everything changed.
Why David Grusch can't say these things in public realms is because he's a whistleblower. He is exposing something that's been going on a long time. And I will tell you, I was there all day, days before, helped set this up. They wouldn't allow for a secure facility for him to speak.
David Charles Grusch is a decorated combat veteran and a former Air Force intelligence officer. Grusch never was a UFO skeptic. That was until 2019, when he was asked to be a representative for the UAP task force. Grusch spent over 4 years in Washington, collecting evidence and trying to figure out exactly what was going on in the skies above us. Until one day, something changed. Grusch had grown tired of his role at the Pentagon, partly because he believed what they had been discovering should be disclosed to the American people. So on June 5th of 2023, Grusch finally went public.
What conclusion did you come to at the end of your time on the UAP task force?
The UAP task force was refused access to a broad crash retrieval program.
When you say crash retrieval, what do you mean?
These are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles, call it spacecraft if you will, non-human, exotic origin vehicles that have either landed or crashed.
We have spacecraft from another species.
We do, yeah.
How many?
Quite a number.
You're kidding.
No. I thought it was totally nuts, and I thought at first I was being deceived. It was a ruse. People started confiding in me. They approached me. I have plenty of current former senior intelligence officers that came to me, many of which I knew almost my whole career, that confided in me they were a part of a program. They named the program. I've never heard of it. And they told me, based on their oral testimony, and they provided me documents and other proof, that there was in fact a program that the UAP task force was not read into.
You are saying to the human race, for the first time, an official intelligence representative at a high level from the US government is saying publicly, we are not alone.
We're definitely not alone. Absolutely, the data points empirically that we're not alone, yeah.
And then things got even stranger.
Do we have bodies? Do we have species of
Well,
non-human?
naturally, when you recover something that's either landed or crashed, sometimes you encounter dead pilots. And believe it or not, as fantastical as that sounds, it's true.
While the interview was a good start, behind the scenes, Grusch was working on something that would get his story in front of every person in America.
The subcommittee hearing on unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAPs, will come to order.
In Washington, D.C., lawmakers were back at Capitol Hill, but this time with some familiar guests.
The witnesses will please stand and raise their right hands. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
David Grusch, Ryan Graves, and David Fravor were all present to attempt to explain to the American people what exactly they had seen.
Today, I would like to highlight 3 critical issues that demand our action. As we convene here, UAP are in our airspace, but they are grossly underreported. These sightings are not rare or isolated, they are routine. Military aircrew and commercial pilots, trained observers whose lives depend on accurate identification, are frequently witnessing these phenomena.
I was informed in the course of my official duties of a multi-decade UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering program, to which I was denied access to those additional read-ons when I requested it. I made the decision, based on the data I collected, to report this information to my superiors and multiple inspectors general, and in effect becoming a whistleblower. As you know, I've suffered retaliation for my decision, but I am hopeful that my actions will ultimately lead to a positive outcome of increased transparency.
The controller told us that these objects had been observed for over 2 weeks, coming down from over 80,000 feet, rapidly descending to 20,000 feet, hanging out for hours, and then going straight back up. For those who don't realize, above 80,000 feet is space.
At one point, you had said that there has been harmful activity or aggressive activity. Has any of the activity been aggressive, been hostile in your reports?
I know of multiple colleagues of mine that got physically injured, and the activity.
By UAPs or by people within the federal government?
Both.
Okay, so there has been activity by alien or non-human technology and or beings that has caused harm to humans.
I can't get into the specifics in an open environment, but at least the activity that I personally witnessed, and I have to be very careful here because they tell you never to acknowledge tradecraft, right? So what I personally witnessed, myself and my wife, was very disturbing.
But not everyone on Capitol Hill was in support of their stories.
Mr. Grusch, in your sworn testimony, you state that the United States government has retrieved supposedly extraterrestrial spacecraft and other UAP-related artifacts. You go so far as to state that the U.S. is in possession of, quote, non-human spacecraft, end quote, and that some of these artifacts have circulated with defense contractors. Several other former military and intelligence officials have come forward with similar allegations, albeit in non-public settings. However, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, the director of AARO, previously testified before Congress that there has been, and I quote, no credible evidence thus far of extraterrestrial activity or of, quote, off-world technology brought to the attention of the office.
At the time that Grusch made his public claims, Sean Kirkpatrick was serving as the first head of the Pentagon's UFO investigation office. Grusch stated that he, quote, expressed some concerns to Dr. Kirkpatrick about a year ago, but he didn't follow up with me. To this, Kirkpatrick fired back, calling the 2023 Congressional hearing as, quote, insulting to officers of the Department of Defense and intelligence community who chose to join AARO. Kirkpatrick said the Pentagon is reluctant to engage on the subject because it's concerned about getting caught up in a, quote, web of conspiracy theories.
You can say categorically you've seen no convincing, confirmable evidence of intact spacecraft kept by the U.S. government.
No, I have seen nothing that leads me to that conclusion.
Is it possible there is some secret program that you're just not aware of?
I don't think so. I have access to anything and everything I need.
Why do you think these whistleblowers are coming forward?
Well, one, I think the recent law, which extended whistleblower protections to them and named AARO as the authorized disclosure authority, opens the door for them to come and tell us exactly what they think they saw or know about.
You believe them?
I believe that they believe what they're telling me, and my job is it's not a question of belief, right? It's a question of what can I go research.
But who's really telling the truth? People like David Grusch, who worked inside the Pentagon for 4 years, or Navy pilots Ryan Graves and David Fravor, who both captured footage of UAPs that remain unexplained. And at the same time, the government seems to be hinting that UAPs could exist, but refuse to share their findings with the public. And just like the American people, the Senate wants answers.
Last year, the House Intelligence Committee held a hearing on UAPs. They brought in some Pentagon bureaucrats who only had 2 answers to the questions they were asked. I don't know, or that's classified. This hearing is going to be different. We're going to have witnesses who can speak frankly to the public about their experiences. We've had a heck of a lot of pushback about this hearing. We've had members of Congress who fought us. We've had members of the intelligence community and also the Pentagon. Even NASA backed out on us. There are a lot of people who don't want this to come to light. I've even tried to introduce an amendment to the Federal Aviation Administration Reauthorization Bill, and all that would do would require the Federal Aviation Administration to report UAP sightings by commercial pilots to Congress. I was told the intelligence community shut it down. This is ridiculous, folks. They do exist or they don't exist. They keep telling us they don't exist, but they block every opportunity for us to get a hold of the information to prove that they do exist. And we're going to get to the bottom of it, dadgummit, whatever the truth may be. We're done with the cover-up.